Welcome to the Developers Who Test podcast, a podcast for developers who embrace test automation so they can ship better quality software faster and have more fun doing it. We're speaking today with Christine Fletcher. Christine is an SDET at Gravitate, a company that provides the software that helps fuel companies optimize their sales, supply, and logistics. Christine joins us today from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where she originally started as a nurse before making a career change into becoming a developer and then later an SDET. So welcome to the Developers Who Test podcast, Christine.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Today's episode of the Developers Who Test podcast is brought to you by Testery.com. Whether you're a developer who has just a handful of tests or even thousands, then your tests deserve to be running on the fastest and most reliable platform for open source testing. With AI-driven insights and analytics, unparalleled parallelism, and awesome integrations, Testery enables you to get more from your tests. Check us out today at Testery.com. So a lot of times when we have guests, love to hear how they got started with testing, and have noticed, a lot of us have different journeys, and noticed that yours started out with nursing. So would love to hear, how are things going in nursing, and why did you decide that you needed to do something else?
So short part of that story, I was just burnout. Did not like where healthcare was headed, and just didn't like it anymore. And work is a big part of your life, and you should be able to go to work and be happy and do something you're passionate about. And I've always been a very creative person, and I never felt like I was able to express that creativity very much in nursing. So in October of 2018, worked my last shift, literally just called in and was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm not coming back to work. And then I spent the next couple of months trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I wanted to start a business was my original thought. But then I realized, I need a website. So then I was like, well, let me just learn how to build a website. That's easy, right? So then I, started learning HTML and CSS, and I had played with MySpace back in the day, and I remember liking doing those kinds of things. And I remember having random thoughts, even as a nurse, thinking working at Google, wouldn't that be cool? Or, and then just thinking, oh, you're not smart enough to do that. Or, that would be such a hugely the negative self-talk that we all have. But definitely life happens and you have to make choices, and I'm very happy with my choice.
So it sounds like you didn't have a plan B. It was just like, all right,
I
I'm
was
burned
just
out.
done.
It's time to make a change. I'm just going to go do it. And not everything was lined up from the beginning, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
So then you decide, okay, well, I need a website. I'm going to start learning how to build websites.
So
how'd you go about doing that?
So went down the path of just, trying to took some online courses on Udemy and got on free code camp and, started learning all these things. But I was just kind of like, I don't know what to learn here. But I really liked coding. So I was like, maybe I just do this. And that's a good career, right? So then I just kind of started researching some different boot camps and things. And went through a boot camp. It took me about 18 months to get through that. And then about 3 months after I graduated, was hired with Capspire/Gravitate as a UI UX developer / designer. And
so what was the boot camp experience like? What does the day-to-day look like for that? Is it a certain number of hours online every day? Is it take-home assignments? Just curious.
Yeah, so the one that I went to, I'm hesitant to even say the name because you can look at my story. There's been some bad publicity about it lately, but I had a good experience whenever I went through the program. So the experience that I had was, it took me about 18 months to get through it. And in the beginning, you learn HTML, you learn CSS, you learn JavaScript. And then once like you're through like each of those sections, you have build weeks where like you get on a team with other people that may be a little further along in the program. So like you have a team of designers, you have a team of, like a HTML person, you have a React person, a backend person.
Mm.
And you all come together, you build a project. So then like I was able to really see, okay, software is a team sport, like this is all, I have to rely on other people, and like really learned how to work on a team. And then once you kind of get through that portion of it, you move on to React, and kind of learn, about like, building software, instead of just
Mhm.
websites. And then you learn the backend portion of it, which, for me, I did, Node.js. And then at that point, I took a pause and I became a team lead. So then I went, back through the program with a team of students. So
Mm.
like each student is in like a cohort with a team lead, and you just kind of help them through like answer any questions, making sure they're doing their assignments. But yes, we would have lectures on the daily. And usually they would last, I can't even remember, like 2 or 3 hours, maybe
Mm.
even longer than that. And then the afternoon time would be project time where we're practicing, what the lecture was over. And that was the standard, throughout the program.
Mhm.
Um, and then you would
Cool.
review it
Yeah.
with your team lead and do code reviews and things like that. So you would get comfortable talking about code and, you know, um, just like what you did.
Yeah, I like how that's a very immersive experience.
Hmm.
I went more the traditional route and got a computer science degree, and a lot of the courses that we took were, very theoretical, or they would go into different things. So, like one day you're writing the assembly language code to run on a chip. Well, a lot of us are never going to go into chip manufacturing or have anything to do with it. So it was kind of an interesting course, but not a lot of practical knowledge.
Yeah.
Or then if you would take a coding course, they cared a lot more about the theory. But when it comes to what I've done in my career day to day, I've done some really amazing things in my career, and very little of it relied on actual computer science theory.
Theory. Yeah.
It's can you put together a really amazing website that looks good, that has forms and validations and works properly?
Yeah.
There's a lot to getting that done right, and so I think it's cool that the focus is on those types of things.
Yeah.
Uh,
100%. And
yeah.
one of the things that, we also got to learn, which kind of sparked my interest in like testing and automation and things, was both for, on the front end portion and the back end portion, we had, testing. Like we learned about
Mm.
software testing, which is pretty unheard of in most boot camps. So I'm glad that I got that exposure. For me, it was like the
Mhm.
most frustrating thing ever, but like I guess I like a challenge, because I still think that writing testing automation is harder than developing.
Mhm.
And that's my opinion, but I'm going to stick with that for now. um,
Yeah,
but
what kind of frameworks did they go over in the course? Was it
yeah, so
mostly unit testing? Did they also do end-to-end testing?
we did end-to-end testing with Cypress. That was actually my introduction, into testing, and I was like I thought it was just so cool.
Mhm.
So I've kind of been a little obsessed with Cypress ever since then. And then on the back end, or actually, I think we did do a little bit with like React testing library and, uh, I don't remember. I don't recall what we
Mm.
used for like our unit testing and things like that,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Yeah.
we kind of
Yeah,
went through the different types of tests.
yeah, for anybody out there who hasn't run their first browser test, I think my first browser test was probably in 2005 or something like that. And I just remember like running and like, wow, this is magic. And
Yeah,
here I am, it's what, 15 years, almost 20 years later. And to me, it's still magic to watch a browser fire up and do the things that a human would do to run the test. So,
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
love that you saw
fun to watch.
that, and then you got hooked, and you're like, this is the kind of thing I want to do.
Yeah,
So it sounds like after the boot camp, you were a UI UX developer. What did
yeah.
you like about that? And how do you think that prepared you to be a better tester?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So whenever I was hired with Gravitate, I was actually the very first external hire. So everybody else that was on the team was just kind of pulled from other teams to start this new project, supply and dispatch. And so whenever I came on, we were still in baby infancy stages, like we didn't even have a client live yet. But the software was still pretty complicated, by that point. So I think just like being able to, learn the front end code base and get like intimately familiar with it. And well, to back up a little bit, so we were on a very small team and we didn't have like QA, we didn't have designated testers, it was front end and back end developers and a project management. And when my mentor went on vacation for about a week, he gave me an assignment and said, okay, go through all these pages and document all the bugs you find. That was all the direction he gave me. I was like, okay. So I went through, found all the bugs, documented it. Whenever he came back, I started my conversation with, well, you guys are either never going to have me test again or you're always going to have me test, because I had a slew of bugs and I had it like red, like I think these are critical, green were like low priority, and yeah, like I had them all triaged and documented step by step. And he was just like, okay. So after that point, and I was a good developer. I was not the fastest developer ever. And part of that was probably because I tested more than most developers. But my stuff that I sent out rarely got sent back to me for bug fixes. But again, we were a smaller team, didn't have QA.
I mean, that's kind of the illusion of speed we get in development sometimes, right? Is it can be really easy to get a unfinished result out there quickly. It's a lot harder to finish it. And I think I've even heard, there's various ways of saying the expression, but it's something like the last 10% of the project takes 50% of the time.
Yes.
That sort of thing.
So true.
So when you were being diligent, you might have been in a sea of people who weren't. And that's kind of how you gravitated towards testing, it sounds like.
Yeah. So as our product kind of growed and matured, they hired my now boss and Jen, and she's been amazing at like really maturing our processes and stuff. And she stole me. So she's like, I want Christine to come on my team. So yeah, I've been about the last year and a half as a QA lead and building out like our QA team. And we do a mix of automation and manual testing because we have to.
Yeah. So that's a common thing. I work with a lot of teams. Our company helps teams get in place, test automation, migrate frameworks, things like that. And it's pretty common to find teams where people are responsible for both the manual testing side as well as the automation side. How do you, on your team, strike a good balance between giving people time for automation, but at the same time, still requiring them to do the manual testing that's required for new functionalities that's coming in?
Yeah, it's definitely been a difficult challenge because of how fast we are having to move. When I started 3 years ago, like I said, we had 0 clients live. And at this point, I'm not even sure how many clients we have live. So it's been a great problem to have, good for business, but trying to really get the time to, write all the automation and all that, that we need has been very difficult. So really like what we've just kind of put our foot down as a team, and we're like, no, we're writing automation for this because yes, it will take me 6 hours to write automation, but it's going to take me 6 hours every time I need to test this feature in the future for future releases. So it's definitely been a challenge and been something, we've had to push back for, just because of the nature of like where we're at, in the growth of our company. But yeah.
Yeah. I think, a lot of folks who push back on whether or not automation should be done because they feel like it slows things down. I suspect a lot of them haven't been on teams where they've seen the automation go really well and get a sense of how that really speeds you up. Probably the biggest thing I see is what percentage of time are teams spending on new functionality versus defects, right? And you could have one team with 10 people where they're spending half their time on new functionality, half their time on defects. Another team with the same 10 people and they're spending 90% of their time on new functionality and only 10% on defects. It's almost like that team of 10 people is twice as big, like almost twice as big as the other team. And you don't get there without automation, in my experience.
100%. And, like the back end, which is the business heavy logic, like they have been really good from jump that we are doing test driven development. They have thousands of unit tests. They have a lot of integration tests. Whenever I was first hired, we had 0 tests on the front end. And it was actually like in my interview that like I was pushing for like automation and like was talking about it. And so it got given to me. So now we have a little bit more. We're getting there, but it's an uphill battle to climb for sure. But most of our bugs are on the front end because of the lack of automation. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, it's awesome that you were able to get that off the ground and get support by doing it and everything. Yeah, so I guess, what I'm wondering now is, what do you see next in terms of, your career and steps along those lines? You've had such an interesting journey with some twists and turns. Do you think, you found it now? This is your jam and this is what you want to do? Or is the jury still out?
I think my journey is ever evolving. I am very passionate about quality and, and about testing and things like that. But I also think that, maybe like project management kind of interests me. Like there's other things that kind of interest me out there. And the great thing about my organization is that they want to support people in their growth. And if they want to try and learn and do new things, like they're going to support you in that, like 100%. So like, yeah, whatever I want to do, pretty much, the door's open. And I've thought about like consulting as well, because that's kind of like taking like everything that I've learned from the beginning and then like really being able to put everything together to like really have an impact like more with clients. That like, yeah, I think I might kind of like want to start leaning in that, but that's kind of far down the future because this project has been my baby and like I'm not quite ready to let it go and let it out of my hands just yet. So yeah, there's timing.
Yeah, so which frameworks are you using now? It sounds like maybe still Cypress for the UI testing.
Yeah, we use Cypress mainly for like the front end, and then we do have a mobile testing app. So we use like Appium and PyTest more for like that type of stuff.
Cool. Yeah, but have you bumped into any limitations yet with Cypress? Well, I guess maybe the mobile testing challenge.
Yeah, that was the biggest one. I think for me, it's just been a learning curve because, I mean, like I didn't have a mentor that could show me how to set up everything and, write these tests. It was just kind of like I was learning as I was going. So I think those were my major roadblocks. Sometimes the clearing of the state in between runs throws me off. So like in the beginning, I was kind of writing my tests to be more, like reliant on each other, which you're not supposed to do. So like kind of going back and reworking, some of those things. But I think just more the learning curve for me.
Yeah, that's a really good concept we should drill into a bit for folks. So
Sure.
this idea of tests being independent of each other, uh, obviously a few reasons for it, like the ability to run tests in parallel, getting more reliable test runs. Why was it important to you to solve the problem of having tests be not depend on previous tests? Like how did that start to become a challenge, and what did you do to unwind that challenge?
Well, it started to become a challenge when I got, several tests in a row that like one was relying on each other. And then I would have an issue down here with this one. So then like I would run this one independently and, like it would fail because it didn't have the ones that were run above it. So to untangle that, like I basically just had to remove, because Cypress allows you to say like isolate test false, which I had done.
Hmm.
Bad tester, don't do that. Um, so then I just basically had to go through, remove all that, and then go kind of factor my tests to make them more independent, which required me to use fixturing more,
Hmm.
or implement fixturing. So I think for me, like with our project, just the biggest thing is the data, because we have so much data that we're
Hmm.
trying to manage, and obviously like none of it is ever the same. So like all of that has to be very dynamic, and then especially if we're ever wanting to test with like other client data, so like I went the route of just getting the data that I needed from the endpoint, like in the beginning of my test runs, making those fixtures, and then using those fixtures in my test runs to like
Hmm.
validate against, and yeah, and like
Cool.
seeding the data and loading it. Yeah.
Yeah. What approach did you use for seeding the data?
I probably used the wrong terminology because I didn't do like database seeding or anything like that. So I did the it's fixtures. Like
Oh, okay. Yeah.
you just write the data to the fixture and then you read the
Hmm.
fixture. And so like when the page would load, I would use an intercept to intercept the response that is going to build the data on my page, and then use my
Hmm.
fixture data to load the data. So kind of
Cool.
like mocking basically, but using
Cool.
real
Yeah.
data from the environment. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of you're doing that to make the UI testing itself more reliable, because
Yes.
now you're not having this external dependency. So it gives you
Correct.
that option.
Like I
So
know what my data is going to be, and then if I, need to intercept it and change it a little bit, then I can do that.
mhm.
Yep.
Cool. Uh what are your thoughts on PyTest and Appium? Has that been working well for the mobile testing side of things?
I have not been intimately involved in that. Like, Swap is our other guy, and I'm kind of more of the UI specialty.
Hmm.
He is the back end data, AI, like all of that heavy stuff that I really just don't want to look at. So he does a lot of that because he needed the in-cab portion or mobile that interacts with the portal. He
Hmm.
needed those tests run in order to test what he was testing. So I don't think he had any problem, setting it up.
Hmm.
It didn't seem like it took him very long. So yeah,
Cool.
I didn't know of any major
Yeah, and do
roadblocks or anything there.
you all do both iOS and Android?
We
Probably
do.
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we use expo to split it out.
Cool. Yeah. So, the other thing that I thought was interesting. So I'm located in the Midwest. So I'm based in Columbia, Missouri, and noticed that you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And, we sometimes get a little bit of pushback for not being located on a particular coast or in one of these large metropolitan areas. So I'm curious, what's the testing environment like in Tulsa? Do you find that there are a lot of other testers that you can go to meetup groups and chat with? Do you feel like you're kind of on your own island?
I honestly have not reached out to too many or even looked about testing groups. I should probably do that. There is more development type groups that I have been a part of. Yeah, that's just sparked an
Hmm,
interest. I'll have to go look. I'm not sure.
cool. Yeah, I mean, it seems more and more a lot of communities are online or virtual. Uh, so I'm part of a few groups where I'm constantly chatting with a lot of folks who are in the uh, Silicon Valley, Bay Area. And it used to be the case that if you wanted to chat with those folks, you had to go move out there and apparently sit around in a Starbucks and wait for somebody to show up. But now, I mean, everybody's online, so
Yeah. Yeah.
you can still talk with these people, and I think they would prefer to chat over Slack, I think, than to get interrupted when they're having their coffee or however networking used to work.
We're all
um,
introverts, right?
yeah, but I still am interested in different communities and things like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so that would be interesting to find out what opportunities there are
Yeah. I'll
in
have
your
to get back with you
communities
on
too.
that one for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, yes, so I think that's a pretty good place here. So Christine, really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your story.
Yeah.
I
Thanks for
think
having me.
it's very encouraging and inspiring for folks to know that uh, you don't always have to know a full, detailed, laid out plan of what you think is going to be next. If the time is right for you to do something, sometimes it's just right to go jump in and do it.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Absolutely.
thank you for being a guest, and hope you have happy testing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You have a great day.